Hey everybody, this is Jarrod Montague, the former drummer of Taproot and the current drummer of Westfall, and you're listening to the guys on Discography Discussion.
Jeff, how was your week, man?
I was actually finishing up wiring up my home theater system.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and I it's all...
Oh, God, here we go.
Yeah, I know. And it's all Star Wars. I mean, because I'm a huge fan, if you guys haven't heard already.
You and John Drake.
Yeah, me and John Drake. So anyway...
Rock hard for Star Wars.
I had this brilliant idea, and I was thinking I should do, 19.2 surround sound.
What
and just
the
have,
fuck?
Yeah, have speakers, all over the place and be a total pretentious ass like George Lucas. And I was just thinking that'd be, the coolest thing, and...
Shh. That's it. Go to sleep. Go to sleep, Lars. That's up. Shh.
Oh, hey, Josh.
Hi.
What's going on?
I need to talk to you about, you can't just keep doing this.
Doing what?
Dude,
Chloroforming
we
people?
literally just saw you chloroform Jeff.
No, you didn't.
I think I can resuscitate him, but...
No, you can't. He's fine.
And if you think that David Draymond needs the Heimlich maneuver, then you are ready for this episode of Discography Discussion. I am Joe. That is Dan. Jeff is out cold, and Josh is in the house. Tonight we are excited. We are talking to Jarrod Montague about his new book, his new band, his favorite metal band, and many more stories tonight on this episode of Discography Discussion. Thank you for listening and for subscribing. If you are not a subscriber, you can find everything Discography Discussion at discussmetal.com. We are on Google Play. We are on iTunes. We are on Stitcher. We are on TuneIn Radio. So if you have an Amazon Echo product, you can say to it, Alexa, play the latest episode of Discography Discussion, and she will. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. It really helps us out. It lets us know you're listening. Without further ado, Jarrod Montague.
Hello.
Howdy.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
How's it going?
You guys got a full house. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Possibly.
You said Metallica, so this guy had to show up.
Yeah, normally it's just three of us, but...
So he's got the Ride the Lightning shirt on, so he's the expert, right?
Right.
Yes.
I think this one, what is it called, Josh?
It's a local donut shop that they're real big metal fans, so they've got it. It says Strange Donuts instead, but underneath is my Ride the Lightning t-shirt.
Oh, okay.
It's awesome.
A metal donut shop. Who would have thought?
Cool.
I'm Dan. I'm the guy you talk to probably the most. And this is Jeff.
How's it going?
Hey, good. How are you?
Doing all right.
Joe's up front and center. He's the guy that pushes all the buttons.
You'll
and
see me the
makes
least.
it all happen. and then this is Josh. Josh is our resident Metallica expert.
Josh is a professional Metallica comparist.
Yes. Yes, I am.
It's awesome. Well, now I'm going to have my work cut out for me.
I'm sure it'll be fun to discuss the Metallica discography.
Well, we did that already.
I know.
That was actually our first episode.
Well, and it's funny too, because now that I've had some time to re-listen some of the older stuff, some of my opinions changed on some of the stuff.
Okay, good. Well,
Really?
Yep.
Like to hear that.
yeah.
Yep. Especially Death Magnetic. I had a negative connotation. I've got more of a positive feel towards that album now. Only because I listen to stuff live, though. That's the biggest thing.
Well, for those of you guys that are listening, we have Jarrod. Is it Montague?
That's correct.
Perfect.
Awesome.
There's only one way to pronounce it, but I always screw people's names up, so we got that going for us.
Oh, I've heard the gamut.
Yeah. But this is Jarrod Montague. You guys might know him as the drummer for Taproot.
Yeah.
Former drummer, but he actually, part of the reason that we are having him on this podcast this week is to help promote his book that he's coming out with called True Rockstars. And I have read some bits and pieces, and it's good stuff. And we will get into that a little bit later. And I'll actually have a few questions pertaining to some of the stuff I read in the book. But he was actually just on the Talk To Me podcast, which are really good friends of ours. And so I'm going to try not to retread too much ground.
You do your best there,
You
Dan.
guys can always go back and listen to that if,
So where are you guys based out of?
We're in St. Louis.
Okay, awesome. Is the pageant still around?
It is.
It is still around.
Yep. It's
Revamped, but around.
Yep.
Oh, cool. That's a great venue.
Yes, it is.
It is, yeah.
It's one of our favorites.
Awesome.
Yeah, we still have the pageant. We still have Pops.
Pops, yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Mississippi Nights is gone.
Yeah,
Sad
that's
face.
Yeah.
it's been gone a long
They
time.
tore the whole building down. Yeah.
So Pops, if I remember right, was in a strip mall.
There's a strip club, yeah.
Strip club, and you had the off-track horse gambling place, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, Fairmont.
Yep. So that's our pride and joy.
That's right.
Yeah, you were known for crime, nudity, and gambling, apparently.
There you go.
We got the urge.
That's right. Yeah.
It's Vegas. You
And
got
the
us.
Urge.
And the
How
Urge.
could you forget
Oh,
the
yeah,
Urge,
the
Jeff?
Yeah.
Does the Urge still play at all?
Oh yeah, they
yep.
just did a show at Riverport Amphitheater, which is the large venue here in St. Louis, a couple months ago.
And they're playing the pageant, some Thanksgiving shows,
Oh, that's awesome.
back-to-back nights. Yeah.
Get a little closer on that mic, Josh.
Oh, sorry. Oh, there. I didn't think I could be any more close to it, Joe, but I'm here. I'm here.
You can be right up on it like your favorite woman.
Right.
In there. I'm in there.
So, whenever I sent you that message saying, yeah, we should talk about Limp Bizkit, dude, that was all to me. He was like, you should ask him to talk about Limp Bizkit. And I was like, I don't know if that's whatever. So,
Are we going to do another
fun, too.
Dan Terra on Limp Bizkit?
I'm super glad. I'm super
No.
glad that he wanted to talk about Metallica instead. So that's more our ballpark, because we typically cover bands that are of the more extreme variety. People are always
What
messing
are
at
some
it.
examples that you've covered recently?
Well, we covered a band called Viljarta. He should pronounce it.
Yeah,
Like a Swedish death metal band.
yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah,
Cool.
let's see. I mean, we did In Flames. We're planning on doing Opeth here pretty soon. We did a band called The Contortionists, which me and Jeff here are huge fans of.
We've done Death.
We've done Death. Yeah, we did Death.
Sepultura.
Sepultura, like just more, kind of the more like in your face kind of stuff. So,
Yep.
but yeah,
Awesome.
our very first episode was Metallica, so I'm kind of glad that we're kind of revisiting that.
That it is.
And so we're not going to subject you to the 2 to 3 hour grueling album by album.
Oh, man.
Well, what did you guys think about, 47 minutes and 23 seconds? What did you guys think of that riff?
No Saint Anger talk?
I mean, we can if you absolutely need to
we
do
can
it
get into
again.
that.
Yeah, we can.
But
So, Jared, why Metallica for you? What makes it so important for you?
Well, so I started taking piano lessons when I was really young, and that was, I guess at the time, a forced thing more or less. And I didn't practice and I didn't enjoy it. So probably started that like 7 years old. But I was really, I guess that there's always music in the house. My dad was kind of he was like into Steppenwolf and Alice Cooper, so a little bit heavier stuff for that day. And
Oh, yeah.
it's funny,
Nice.
even later on, I didn't discover Led Zeppelin until I was probably sophomore, junior in high school. And I went and Rush, the same thing. And I told my dad, well, how come you weren't listening to Led Zeppelin? He said, well, they're always on the radio. So it was one of those things that I heard all the time, so I didn't feel any need to buy their records. So
Missing out.
Yeah, exactly. So I found myself, I would always listen to Casey Kasem's Top 40, and I'd listen to a lot of the really pop stuff that was on the radio in the early 80s. So I was born in 76, so 7, 8, 9 years old. It was Prince and Billy Joel and Huey Lewis, and those were my favorite bands for a period of time. And then I think once Guns N' Roses came out and In Excess Kick came out, that was probably more I was around 6th, 7th grade. That's kind of where I really gravitated towards. I knew it was kind of fresh, decent, cool music for me. And I was at a friend's birthday party. I think had to be 7th grade, so it would have been 88. And they were playing a VHS tape. And I just remember it was like a mosh pit and stage diving. It was this tiny club. And I guess it was a Minor Threat video, I found out later.
Oh,
But
nice.
I'd never seen anything like that. And I asked the guy who owned the tape, I said, what is this? Where did this come from? And he said, oh, this is Minor Threat. Yeah, that's stage diving. That's moshing. I said, well, where can I hear more of this stuff? And he said, well, probably a good starter kit would be this band Metallica. They have a new record come out. It was And Justice for All.
Nice.
So I talked my mom into taking me to Meijer, which is the big grocery store chain in Michigan. And I got the tape and got home, put it in the Walkman, lay down in bed with the headphones, and I was just blown away. My mind was blown. And I think what it was since I did have some of the musical background with the piano lessons and all that, I was really just taken aback by the raw talent and the speed, and it was just unlike anything I'd ever heard before. Blacken comes in, it's got that crazy riff, and the drums come in really fast, and then I thought it was interesting too. I'd heard pieces of heavier stuff, but it always just kind of sounded like really grovelly to me, and it didn't catch my ear. But
Sure.
felt like James was able to almost scream a melody, which was really new for me too. And I thought, okay, this guy, not only are they talented, but this guy's has a version of a melody going on, and also his lyrics were just, he's talking Inquisition seeking you with trying minds, and Guns N' Roses in excess were, she's got eyes of the bluest sky. So it was just kind of like, oh, this is smarter music than what I'm listening to.
Right.
And so the next thing was I got one of those Columbia House things, and I got 18 tapes for a penny or whatever.
Nice.
And the first thing I did was I ordered everything that was in the M's, I guess. So it was Megadeth and Manowar.
Yes.
And
Very nice.
Yeah, and Motorhead. And so I just went to the heavy metal section. I said, okay, I got to start somewhere. So I ordered all that stuff, and I just started, basically getting an education in heavy metal. So that's kind of where it started.
Nice.
Very cool. I did the Columbia House thing as well. I totally, feel where you're coming from on that one. I kind of stuck towards the NXS. I was a huge fan of Michael Hutchence because I liked the music and they got the chicks. That was kind of my thing back then.
That's right, yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I like these guys.
I remember doing the same thing in the mid-'90s, and I forget how it started, but it was, okay, well, I'm just going to order all the bands that I know off the radio or off of MTV. So my first order of Columbia House was every Metallica they had available, Slipknot, Korn, White Zombie, and Rob Zombie, and for some reason I sent back White Zombie, and I don't remember why.
That's actually kind of funny.
You send it back.
I don't remember why, because you could send back one, whatever.
That's funny. No, thank you. Don't want this one.
Yeah, they'd send you the one tape that they tried to charge you for like $12, and my mom taught me early on you could just write refuse to sender or whatever, or refused, and then the post office would have to take it back and they would pay the postage. So I probably did that way too many times, but
that's my secret to junk mail is just refused.
That's right.
That's right.
You can have it back.
Yeah, I guess on mine it was really these guys. Because I think before that, I guess what are we talking, Joe? Like mid-'90s?
It would have been 96, 97.
Yeah. So like, I was really into like punk bands and grunge bands and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I remember for a long time it was Nirvana and Alice in Chains. That was it. And,
absolutely.
Yep.
Josh introduced me to.
I introduced him to Metallica.
Yeah, he introduced me to Kill 'Em All, and I think he gave me the first four: Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, and Justice for All.
I was the kid who made
Master
copies of the
Puppets.
first four albums, and I just handed them out like candy to whoever was
Don't
interested.
listen to Load.
Like,
Don't listen to Reload. Just listen to this. Everything will be fine.
Right? Yeah, and
then Dan pops up one day and says, well, my favorite Metallica song is King Nothing. And me and Josh both looked at him and said, it's okay, dude. You don't know any better.
That's so, yeah.
well,
that's
that
all right.
band. That band definitely, obviously took me on a path that completely changed everything,
And then Zayo showed up and the whole world was different.
Yeah, Zayo.
Well,
yeah.
It's interesting too because I feel like I'm wondering for you guys if I feel like as I've talked to people that were fans of Taproot and people that say, oh, Taproot's my favorite band, I feel like the age where people are primed to figure out who their favorite band is usually happens around that 7th, 8th grade time.
Absolutely.
I've met people that are 3 years older than me, and they have the exact same feeling and story about me discovering Justice for All, but for them it's Master of Puppets.
Right.
And I now that I have listened to all of their records, I can probably agree that I think Master of Puppets is the more complete, better album, I think. But it's still hard for me to look at it objectively because Injustice for All is my record. And even to hear the Metallica guys talk about it now, they say, oh, we were on this weird path at that time and we got all political and we didn't really care, so we're making 9-minute songs and
no bass.
Yeah,
no bass.
Right.
Yeah.
No bass.
That's right. We wanted the kick drum to sound like it was way out in front and it was really high pitched, but I think it just hit me at that right time. You guys have talked about a lot of records. Do you find that that's true, that maybe that kind of middle school spot is where a lot of people latch on to whatever becomes their favorite band?
I think so. I know people that are still stuck on that one Tool record or that one Deftones record or something, and it's funny because I try really, really hard to stay current. I think my personal feelings always tends to gravitate towards that 7th, 8th grade, 9th grade kind of, but I don't tell anybody that because I try to be a cool guy or whatever. But like, it's,
right.
it's funny that, but a lot of people are a little bit more honest and just say that, look, for whatever reason, I like the music I liked whenever I was just starting high school, and that's it. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of the outlier on that. I've always been the weirdo that tries to go further down the rabbit hole as soon as I find something, and then I find some weird parallel to it, and then just keep on going further and further down. That's why I ended up with all of these weird Swedish death metal bands. Like for me, like the seminal band for me when I was a little bit younger was Soilwork. Like that was that was my thing in my 20s and early 30s. Was I listened to a ton of that. But yeah, like my first experience with Metallica was also with And Justice for All, because I'm pretty close to your age. So I remember all the skater punks in my neighborhood, just blasting the shit out of that. And just, I'm like, what the hell is that? Because, I was a huge Michael Jackson fan in the 80s. Yeah. And then, like, I go from hearing Michael Jackson in my house, I go up the street and listen, and then, these kids are listening to this on their boombox. I'm like,
Blackguard.
That's right. Yeah, and I'm like, this, it was totally a jarring experience for me. So, it was really easy to remember just because it was so in my face and it was so different from what I was used to, because my dad was a big R&B and soul guy, and then. Right. So, I mean, obviously it was easy for me to go to the Pointer Sisters and Michael Jackson, and then hearing Metallica, I was like, oh my God, this is, and I think my relationship with my parents just continued to go downhill ever since then.
I remember the first thing I ever heard was this guy named Brian was just playing a song that I'd never heard before, and it was Turn the Page. And I said, well, what is that? And he says, it's called Turn the Page. And I was not a guitar player, but I decided I wanted to be one. And he said, well, you can hear it on Metallica's Garage Inc. And that led to a month straight of, okay, every week I got to go buy 2 more records and just keep blowing through the catalog. And just, I didn't grow to appreciate all the records until later. But it was, okay, now tunnel vision, it's Metallica. And for the next 5 years straight, it was, okay, I can play every Metallica song. Hey, Josh, can you play every Metallica song? Well, yeah, I can play all the solos. All right, we're good.
That's right. Let's hook up.
Yeah, they used to jam out in the basement all the time.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. I mean, it's amazing how that album is the one album that everyone's like, oh, that's what really turned me on to Metallica was Justice for All. And the crazy thing is by that point in their career, they were already a mega band that nobody knew about. Like, you didn't hear about them on TV, you didn't hear about them on the radio. It's not like anybody advertised them, but they had this following. And you go back and listen to the stuff, and it's like, how does nobody know about this band up until 88? Like, they've been around since 82. How does anybody just now figuring this out, like, on a grand scale? It to this day still blows my mind with that stuff.
And everybody bitches about it, too.
Yeah, I know. Like, oh, that's not my band anymore. They're too grown up. They're too mainstream. It's like, what? That makes no sense. What mainstream? Just because they're awesome on a grand scale? Like,
right.
I do find it curious what would happen if Metallica came out today, with the social media and the internet. Because there's the underground is what, that was their lifeblood for the 6 years that nobody knew about them. And I've always been really curious, what would happen to them, a band like them, if they blew up now. How, they're so massive now. Just think about what it would have been like if they actually had some sort of way to share all of it underground like we do now. They'd be God. And I was kind of wondering too, I think about
that a lot too. Just if, we all have this unique experience about when we heard those bands and when we first heard them playing at the skate park or we watched some video. And I just feel like everything's so much more out there now for the kids. And I just feel like they won't, it could just be an old guy talking, but the same thing is when they'll never experience going to a record store at midnight to get the records that come out on Tuesday, right? I mean, how exciting was that?
Right.
But I always think about, are they ever really going to have the experience where they discover some band and it's kind of this cool little secret? Because I feel like if they're hearing about it on the internet, then a whole bunch of people probably already know about it and it's not as special. But I don't know, maybe it's just a warped view of how that's working today. I don't know.
A lot of the underground artists that are found, I've noticed having younger nieces and nephews, I ask them about social media and how they use it, and it's funny to me how much they watch YouTube where nobody watches TV anymore. But then then they'll start talking about some guy that plays this really awesome metal guitar, and you find out it's Caleb Hart, and he's singing about Undertale. And here's this person who is essentially the modern version of an underground artist, and they know about it from just watching it on YouTube. And that person maybe, and I say that because I can't think of many that will never have a major release or be an extremely popular band. But they made that awesome YouTube video once. And I mean, Metallica was on a cassette at some point that was dropped in my lap.
What does that mean, though, to really to have a major release anymore? Because I mean, I think as far as that stuff goes, I'm really starting to feel like that stuff is a thing of the past.
My band is on Spotify.
I mean, just the whole idea of start a band, play some shows, get your demos out there, release some albums yourself, get signed to a major label, and all your wildest dreams will come true. And after reading your book, obviously, that's not how it goes. Not necessarily the case, And I mean, you guys toured with the biggest bands in the world, and you guys were one of the big, my wife asked me, she's like, "Oh, so who are you talking to tonight?" I was like, "Oh, I'm talking to Jarrod from Taproot," and she's like, "I've heard of Taproot," and all she listens to is pop, like 80s pop music and stuff. You know what I mean? So it's one of those. It's like if you guys were a band that my wife at least knew the name of, there's a certain amount of notoriety that's there that people that actually listen to that kind of music are gonna really get into. And so I think the idea of a major release, because like from reading the amount that you sent me, there was a the whole thing about the record labels, like the dealing with the label and how they needed a hit and they needed this and that, and how they just needed so much from you. But the reality is now in 2017, you can just do what you want. Yeah, I mean, you don't need a record label anymore. You can release, you can record and release music that night, and it doesn't matter. Basement. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about it, and especially with the nature of people want to always feel like they're unique in the sense that they're the first ones hearing something, and that's how you get like the metal elitists and all these people. Like we kind of all, on some level, want our music to only be ours and not anybody else's. So I think really the idea of whenever I hear about a record going platinum, because like I think Metallica's newest one actually went platinum.
It did,
and I was actually surprised. Even though Metallica is such a big band, a platinum record in 2017 is like
unheard of.
Right. I mean, who does that? I mean, now I kind of feel like gold is the new platinum.
Right.
And
what's funny that everyone at our label always told us if you guys would have. So our first record came out in 2000, and second one 2002, third one 2005, and everyone pretty much said that if we had come out even 5 years earlier than that we probably would have sold 2 or 3 times as many records. So things had already started to decline a little bit. And our second record, Welcome, with the song Poem on it, it never even went gold. But I've seen more of an effect now that I'm looking back on it. And of course, social media it exists, which it didn't really exist back when we were doing it. Just like you're saying about your wife, as I talk to people, a lot of people are at least, "Oh yeah, I think I've heard of you guys," but it didn't feel that way from where we were, just because we didn't sell a ton of records, and we had a couple songs that did pretty good on radio, but it didn't feel like had all this big following. And I think I kind of started seeing the writing on the wall when we would be doing these signings at record stores, and probably every third kid would bring a burned CD to have us sign.
They actually did that?
That is so ballsy. Like, why would you? I would be so nervous, meeting the band and being like, "Here's my burned copy."
Can you imagine taking a copy of the Black Album or something and handing it to Lars and being like, "It's a burned kit, just says Black on there, Metallica." Like, "Lars, could you sign this?" Can you imagine his reaction to that?
Well, it's like a PR disaster. It's a PR disaster if you take the disc and throw it in their face and be like, "Fuck you, go buy a real copy." Nobody's going to do that, because it's like you don't want to look bad yourselves, even though you're thinking, well, there's...
Come on, guy.
There's at least one lost,
I started seeing that more and more, and I kind of equate the whole thing of the music industry changing just to, I guess, a change in technology, the same way Kodak went bankrupt because no one takes pictures with disposable cameras anymore. We've got them all on our phones. So I guess I don't really blame, a lot of people want to say, oh, the labels messed everything up, but it was really just people. Let's say that we all used to spend, $20 to $50 a month buying music. Nobody spends that amount of money anymore on music because they've got their Spotify subscription, and maybe I still feel like I'm a little old school because I still won't sign up for any of those streaming services. I'll still buy stuff on iTunes,
right?
And even I do know that the artist gets about probably half of what they would have when you were buying a physical copy, but I feel like it's still a little bit tied into with what I think we should be doing to support the music that we love. But it's interesting. I think there's still another shift of all that happening because I've talked about this with other artists, and I was talking to a guy who's in this really big Christian band called Sanctus Real and about the whole streaming thing. And he said, yeah, we definitely don't see the money, but what's interesting is we had a song that got added to a playlist that has like 60,000 followers. So
right.
There's a whole nother realm of, being discovered through that. And then I also start thinking about, well, we don't even know what the long-term effective revenue coming in from streaming might be, because maybe Taproot will, in the next 20 years, make more money from streaming than by me paying $1.29 for a song right now, and then I never spend money on it again. So
possibly, yeah.
But that's 20 years from now.
Right, you probably would enjoy having that money now versus 20
years from now.
I don't know. It is an interesting perspective to take on it, though. I mean, you're looking at the short term versus the long term, because you're right. You're getting a larger percentage up front, but it's only one time. Whereas each time that you're listened to on a streaming service, you're getting a fraction of a penny or whatever it is. But if that keeps going on over and over and over and over again, I mean, it's very possible that it could well surpass what you would have gotten if it would just been that one-time purchase. And that's a really interesting point. I'd never really thought of it that way before, as far as for somebody like yourself who's actually a performing artist that actually, that's how you made your living, and now you're, looking back on it, that's really. I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna be thinking about that a lot tonight. I'm not gonna lie. I might end up doing some math.
Yeah, there's a band from Detroit called No Resolve, and they're not signed, but they got a song that's being played on Sirius XM, and it's doing pretty well. And they have some labels that are looking at them, and I'm just kind of trying to give them advice. And I said, well, tell me a little bit about your numbers. What are you making from streaming and merch? And they said they're bringing in like $2,000 to $2,500 a month from streaming, and they'll sell, they'll do $100, $200 in merch. And I'm like, well, if you sign a 360 deal with a label, they're obviously going to take a percentage of all of that.
Yeah.
So I think that you guys probably could be a financially viable band if I think what you guys already said it, go in and make, release a new song every couple months or do a 3 or 5 song EP and just, keep building the streaming followers. And so I guess the way I see it, kind of how I put it to him is, if your goal in music is to have your band's name well known and go on tour and do that whole thing, then you sign the deal, but don't plan on making any money, because Taproot was around when people were still buying CDs. And at the end of 5 years, I say in the book, I checked my ATM and I had $20 in there because our third record didn't sell very well. And say $50,000, $60,000 advance that we had gotten for that record, it took us, we lived on that money for 3 years. So $20,000 a year, not a great living. And we, it just didn't sell well, and we weren't going to do another record with Atlantic. So we were broke. And, but a lot of people now know who Taproot is, and we got to have a lot of fun on the road. So I think that's the decision point for a new band is if you can grind it out, you can probably bring in more money than you would if you sign a label, but you're probably not going to get that really wide exposure unless you have a label backing you,
Sure, yeah.
So is it true, and I use this story roughly, the way Steve Albini laid it out once was, you get $50,000 up front, but that's basically your advance for the next 4 years. So is that basically true? Yeah,
it's basically true. Yeah, in fact, I say in the book, and I don't think I've put it out there yet, but I'm going to be shipping the book in a week or two. But I took a picture of my, you get those annual Social Security statements, and it shows your exact money that you made for each year. So if you look on that, I think in 2003, when we would have gotten our advance for our third record, I think it was $50,000 or $60,000, and then 2004 was like $2,000 something, and 2005 was like $1,700. So and those would have just been mechanicals coming in from radio play and whatever. So yeah, literally, if I think for a normal advance, we'd get $300,000 to $500,000 as a band, and then all of our management and business people and all that, they take their percent off the gross. So our manager would get 17.5%, agent 10%, lawyer 5%, and business manager 5%. Then we would split the rest, and then of course it would get taxed. So we would usually each end up with 30, 40, 50 grand, and that would have to last us 2 to 3 years, whatever that record cycle was. So
that's like, I mean, you might as well be working at
That's
McDonald's.
insane.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, work somewhere else and do that.
But you're hanging out with Disturbed, and so there's a certain amount of coolness to that. But I guess for me, I never equated, because I used to be a big proponent or a big supporter of the idea of digital music. I liked that you had an unlimited amount of storage. But the problem with that is that, again, whenever you speak pro digital music, it's almost like you're giving a big middle finger to the bands that you like because of the way the system is set up now. And I think the rough part about that is that, like, I kind of always felt like the same thing sort of existed in the world of almost like used CD sales. I might have a humongous CD collection, but I guarantee you that at least half of it wasn't bought day one, at a store where it was getting, actual sound scan, results. Yeah. I'm buying, Josh's used copy of Black Album for $4 at a local, you know what I mean? And like, who gets the kickback from that?
You, sir,
Nobody.
are a damn liar, because Josh would never sell his copy of the Black Album.
I've actually had to rebuy half my collection because of it. It got so wore out or broke. Like, the CD's done. I got to go get a new one. I think I went through 4 copies of Master of Puppets, 2 or 3 Kill 'Em All, a couple Ride the Lightning.
Well, to be honest,
that means don't leave them in your car.
From the book, I was actually pretty shocked. Like it how you would start with a high amount of money, like you said, three, or what was it, like 300 to 500,000, and just watch all of that money just
disappear,
filter down.
Yeah.
And now was part of that the label too, though? Like, just telling you, like, you have to be on, this tour bus that makes automatic espresso or whatever. Yeah.
So that's another really kind of sick thing that I've just figured out. Even in actually, while I was writing the book, I was kind of putting a lot of pieces together. And what's interesting about it is we would always, so the label would give you an advance for a tour. So I think when we were on Ozfest, it cost us $80,000 to tour for 2 months.
Okay.
So that's your bus and your driver and your hotels and your techs and your gas and all that stuff. So any income that would come into the band, like I said, I guess everyone always says that the record industry is screwed up, and I think the reason it's so unfair to the artists is because all those manager people take their money off the gross. So if we had $80,000 coming in as a loan, quote unquote, from Atlantic, everyone gets a cut off of that $80,000. So if you think about it, there's no incentive to the managers and all those people that are getting money to have you tour in a expense-minded way. So the more glamorous they can make it and the more money that they spend, the more money that they can take off the top. So, and by the time I kind of started figuring all this stuff out, I think I said in the book, the last tour that we did was, I decided, hey, we're going to go make money on this tour. I'm going to be the tour manager. And I kind of just figured out, okay, we're going to go back to a van and trailer. I'm going to, kind of book all the shows and do the advances. And we're going to take, 2 techs out. And for the very first time ever, we pulled back into my singer's driveway, and I think we had $14,000 cash. And I handed each guy, $3,500 in cash. And we were just like, oh my gosh, we made money on tour. And it was,
right.
Pretty incredible. So by the time you figure out how it all works, it's almost, we're already on the down cycle of our of our popularity. So I want to try to get that message out there. So if people are interested in doing something in the music industry, they're just going with eyes wide open and they know how a lot of it works so that they can make a conscious decision on which way they want to go, you know?
Right.
Do you think that they can still get away with that, or is that kind of gone by the wayside?
No, I think they definitely can. In fact, I have a friend that's a songwriter, full-time songwriter for Atlantic, and we were talking about The Voice. I love The Voice. I only watch 2 shows, The Voice and America's Got Talent. And he said that he knows people that have gone on The Voice, and essentially they kind of sign their life away. It's such a crappy deal for the artist because they take so much of a percentage off of you that they basically never make money unless they're, just a crazy superstar. I think the last time I looked up even like Kelly Clarkson's net worth, it was like $15 million, which, that's a nice number, but for as big of a superstar as she was at one time, she probably should have made a lot more money, but she obviously came from American Idol, so they just put these artists in really crummy deals. And in fact, that same guy said you're better off to finish like 4th or 5th on The Voice because you're not as tied into the deal as if you win, because then you're kind of their employee, but you still gain some kind of a following from being on TV, and so hopefully you can convert that into something. So yeah, I think it still happens. I think even when we signed our deal with Atlantic, the split was the label gets 86% of your record sale and we get 14%, but then they withhold our 14% until we pay back all these loans. And basically, unless you become like as big as Kid Rock or somebody, you never are going to recoup your money. And I don't know if you guys ever saw that movie, was it Artifact that 30 Seconds to Mars did? They do a really cool breakdown of how all that works. And they basically say, we sold 2 million records, but we still haven't recouped with our label. So
right.
It's still kind of set up that way.
Sounds like bullshit.
It is. It's crazy. It's crazy to think that the labels can still get away with that now. I know it's easy to say labels are the bad guy or whatever. I mean, obviously, none of us would be here if it wasn't for Atlantic Records and, you know what I mean, like all that stuff. Like a lot of the first music we ever heard was provided by a major. And so I mean, there's certain credibility to that, but I think it's just odd because with listening to underground music primarily now, I guess it's one of those, like, I just had a buddy of mine, a relatively well-known indie label contacted his band wanting them to sign a deal or whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, man, well, don't do this, make sure you do this, make sure you do that, all the advice that people give each other. And then he comes back the next day and he's just laughing. He's like, dude, that was literally the worst deal they offered us that I think that you could possibly have. Like, I think it was one of those, like, they do a 1-album deal and the label basically gets, like Atlantic, I think the label gets like 86% of the sales of the record.
Yep.
But and they also get an exclusive band T-shirt design that only they can sell.
Oh wow!
That the band has to contract out an artist to make the T-shirt and all that, and that actually whenever they're on tour, that the label actually gets a cut of the merch sales and stuff. And I'm just like, what the hell is that? I mean, like, for an underground hardcore band, like, your merch sales are the only thing that's going to get you from one town to the next town.
That's right.
So like, why in the world would anybody sign a deal like that? But I think that there's just still this myth perpetuated that, like, you're working hard now, but you're going to sign to a label and then all your wildest dreams are going to come true. And that's what I really enjoyed about the bit of True Rockstars was it was all like, dude, I was in Taproot. We had the most played song of 2002. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, and this is how much I was pulling in per year.
Yeah. Even some of my really good friends, I think they still believe that I'm just making it up. That's why I put a picture of my Social Security statement. I wanted people to say, no, I'm not. It's not like a joke. I mean, you remember I think TLC did that Behind the Music where she said, I think Left Eye was like, here's how you can sell 1 million records and still be broke. And she broke down some of that math. And I remember thinking at that time, they must have some other money coming in somewhere. But it's not. It's real.
Right.
And, back to the whole spending thing in the loans. I remember our video for Poem. The brothers Strauss directed it, and they've done like movies, and the budget was $225,000. And looking back, it was a 2-day video shoot, but there's 40 people on the set, and there's makeup artists, and there's a wardrobe person, and it's just like the money that was spent back then is just unbelievable. So yeah, and if I think about it, I'm not trying to bash the labels, but like the deal that you're saying that your buddy was offered, that's the whole 360 deal where, frankly, I mean, the labels are struggling too. They've still got their big buildings in New York and LA and all their employees that they have to pay for, and their income stream has gone way down because people aren't buying music anymore. So they've had to try to do anything they can to try to keep the revenue coming in. And so they're thinking, okay, well, I guess we've got to get a piece of the merch and the royalties from the radio play and any other piece that they can put their hands on just so they can keep their business going, So
right.
Yeah, they're trying to squeeze blood out of a stone. They're just trying to get every last drop that they can because that's they're on a failing model. I mean, it doesn't work now. But but they still are grasping at it, and unfortunately it's the artist that ends up having to pay the toll. It's not the record label yet. Eventually, it's just going to be where I don't think there's going to be major record labels anymore. I don't think they're going to. Yeah. I don't think they're going to exist. They just with everything going digital, the way that everybody has easy access to do it themselves, and the software keeps getting better. It keeps getting cheaper. I mean, there's
resolution.
Yeah,
96K.
Yeah, I mean, there's
out of this thing right here.
Yeah, there's less and less reason, to do that, and that's the other thing too. Is we are now looking at the next generation that's coming up, and all they know is digital. Like that's all my kids know. I mean, I got 11 and 13-year-old, and they don't know anything but digital. All they do is YouTube. Everything is Discord, and everything is on Twitch. So they don't understand it. And whenever I show them an 8-track player, and I'm like, yeah, I used to take my music and actually record it onto blank 8 tracks so I could play it in the car that my dad and I bought. They'd be like, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, because it was a muscle car. I'm like, I'm not, and we wanted to keep it vintage. And they have no clue what I'm talking about, because everything is digital. They're like, what's a tape?
Yep.
And let alone an 8-track.
Do you remember I was almost in tears whenever me and my wife we finally broke the 2-kid threshold, now have 3 children. So I had to give up my creepy gold van that I drove around all the time that had an amazing cassette deck in it.
Oh, dude, that thing.
And I was almost in tears that I had to give up my cassettes because I still had all of them, dude. I still had everything.
Because you're still listening to original 80s thrash on cassette.
Dude, I mean, I listen to all kinds of that stuff. I've got old Sepultura albums on cassette, and I loved and it sounded really good because it was a van that was made in the early 2000s but hadn't been driven a whole lot, so it still had a legit cassette deck that was newly manufactured, and so everything was perfect about it. The sound was great, and it sounded probably not as good as a CD realistically, but it's still,
It's the experience, though. That's what it is. It was,
dude, just pulling out that little plastic triangle and being like, yeah, things haven't changed that much over the years, And but eventually I had to give that up, and now my wife drives it around with our posse of children.
And they get to listen to it.
I got 5, so I feel you.
Oh, 5.
Yeah. So my oldest is 11, and I was telling him the other day, you guys remember this? I remember what a big deal it was when they came out with the cassette players where you would hit fast forward and it would look for the break.
Yep.
Auto-sync.
Big deal.
Whole new ball game.
Oh, man.
That adds at least $60 to the price of the player. Yeah, I mean, it's...
You no longer had to hit fast forward and play. Am I there yet? Nope, fast forward, play.
Didn't they actually call that the smart cassette? Yes.
I never did that.
I can't remember if it was called that. Yeah, something like that. So it's like, wow, so we had smart devices before we had smart devices. But yeah, that kind of stuff. And I actually found recently, it's a CD, but I found the Dracula 2000 soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
That I stole from my brother. I asked him if I could borrow it 15 years ago, and I still have it. So
The soundtrack.
And he knows.
This only applies because that soundtrack is the very first time I ever heard Taproot.
Oh, that's cool.
Which was the song was called Day by Day.
You got it.
And that is still my favorite Taproot song because it's the first one I ever heard. Nobody can ever beat the first one you've ever heard.
True.
Yeah, I remember listening to that and thinking like, holy shit, this guy's screaming is just sick. I mean, it was just, it was in a lot of ways, it was almost more extreme than everything else on that soundtrack. You know?
Yeah, I can't remember really what else was on there. Was it like Static X and
Static X, Slayer, Disturbed? I mean, all your regulars. You know, Marilyn Manson and yeah,
probably Zombie on there at some point.
Yeah, I don't know if Rob Zombie was on there. I know Slayer was on there for. I guess that was off of their album God Hates Us All.
Yeah,
was on that one, and
soundtracks.
I remember the Taproot song really stood out to me because it was it's like super aggressive and like part of what got me more into like the hardcore, like growling, screaming stuff that I like now. That song was like so like heavily influential as far as like even whenever I sang in bands over the years, I tried to adopt that scream, you know, and honestly, like even to this day, I still feel like it's unmatched. You know, it's just very I don't even know how to describe it really, other than just like. I think you told Toomey too something about like it's almost like he harmonizes with his screams.
Yeah,
like can harmonize with the sung vocal that's underneath it. You know, like it's just unreal.
I've asked him about it. I mean, a lot of people. He actually says that my old singer, whatever, Taproot singer, says that it's harder for him to sing a higher note than it is to do that scream. So
I agree.
He says there really is kind of a. He calls it a vocal trick, and it's almost like I mean, it's still a scream, but he said it's almost kind of like a loud whisper.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I guess he just figured out how to kind of master that. But yeah, I still never able to figure out. I mean, I sit there and watch him record, and I still can't figure out how he does it and why I can't do anything that's close to that.
Well, and what I like about that type of scream in particular, that like higher pitched, and it's more of a growl than a scream. It's not it's not a bark like you'll get from like a Hatebreed type of band or anything like that. It's a throaty, raspy kind of scream. And what I like about it the most is that it really differentiates the music and makes it hit you on a more emotional level versus a tough guy level.
Yeah.
Because that's something I hate one thing I hate about metal is the hyper masculinity that's very present in metal.
Yep.
And so that type of higher pitched, like growling, screaming stuff, it doesn't hit you in the same way. It's still aggressive, it's still full of energy, but it's not like a, you know, I'm better than you, I'm gonna beat you down. You know, like it's not that, you're not the aggressor. So to speak.
And of course we talked about I came from a pop background, I guess, and so I still have a soft spot for a good 80s pop tune, and I always say, man, if I could clear this disk drive of space of 80s lyrics and melodies out of my brain, I could probably cure cancer right now. But
sure.
You know, 'cause it's all filed up there. But so I think, you know, I don't think I would have been attracted to be in a band that was like Hatebreed. I like Hatebreed for what Hatebreed is, but there's no kind of rest from that same kind of vocal sound. And I always liked how Steve was able to do that scream, which, like you said, it kind of satisfied that metal stuff that I grew up on. But also then he switches over and does a melody, which I like. And so I think that was part of why because I wouldn't have been in a band that I didn't like the music. So I think that's kind of why I gravitated towards what we were doing and just really decided, you know, in the book I talk about I was kind of destined for medical school and was going to be a physician, and Taproot kind of started taking off, and we had built this local following in southeastern Michigan, and I just kind of had to make that decision. We were offered a record deal, and I'd taken the MCAT, and I was getting ready to go to med school, and I actually talked to a gastroenterologist doctor that I was working for and said, hey, I have this opportunity. What do you think I should do? And he was like, dude, you got to go for it. This is that fork in the road. You can always go back to med school. And so, yeah, I felt like what we were doing was pretty special, and it was maybe like the next evolution of Korn. And, you know, at the time, we didn't know that there were a whole other slew of bands that were doing something similar to what we were doing. Like like all the bands that we toured with from, 2000, 2005, like Papa Roach and Disturbed and Linkin Park and Chevelle. But all of a sudden we find out like, oh wow, there's a bunch of bands that kind of figured out, all doing something in the same genre. It's interesting.
Isn't that weird how that works? Like,
yeah, it really is.
You wonder like how, like, as a society, humans kind of like at different parts of the world adapted certain technologies and everything all at the same time, like being very isolated from one another. Because it's not like there was YouTube back then. Like you could, like, I mean, in like 1999, the best I could hope to hear a new band was like my buddy might make me a tape of it, or
I was gonna say tape trading and CD trading. I mean, stuff like that.
And I know that's piracy or whatever, but it's like, it led to back then. It led to album sales.
Yep.
But
that's right.
But what's interesting is that, like, whenever we Joe and I played in a band for a number of years, and it was one of those things where it was just the very beginning of MySpace. And I remember even back then thinking, oh my gosh, this is so oversaturated. And I would hear like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 bands a day that sounded exactly like what we were doing. It was very demoralizing,
That's right.
Because I was like, oh, dude, nobody's going to care. And they didn't. But, it's one of those, like, it's just one of those weird things where, one of those weird periods of time, which I have a really soft spot for, like 1998 through like 2002, which was, I think, really was like the era of nu metal, as we would call it now. It's weird too, because like I remember back then nobody called it nu metal.
No, it was never it was never labeled nu metal.
Yeah.
It was just metal.
Yeah, it was the metal of the time,
Metal or hard rock, that's what it was called.
I even remember when it was okay to listen to stuff like Limp Bizkit and it'd be like okay.
Yep.
And now I'm like, no, I was never into that.
No, I didn't listen. Fred who? Yeah, I don't know that guy.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody. Obviously, we had our kind of history with Limp Bizkit, and I've still been reflecting, like, what was it? Like, why did everyone turn on him so hard? And I think, I talked to one person, and they kind of theorized that it was because that first record was, when we got that record, we were, Pollution and Stuck in All Those, we were like, wow, this is awesome. And, it felt like the next evolution of Korn, which we were all into. But then, I think there's just such a big jump from $3 Bill to Significant Other, where it was really kind of hyper produced. And I liked a lot of songs on that record too, but I think and then I feel like by the time they got to the next record and he's rolling and all that, I think he almost kind of like became a caricature of himself, like all the yeahs and all that people probably just accepted because the music was good.
Right.
All of a sudden that was at the forefront. And I think people were just like, yep, this is kind of taking a direction I don't care for. But yeah, what a backlash. I mean, because they were a really great band at one point at least, and had a lot of credibility. But man, for something just happened and everyone turned.
And I think part of it isn't even their fault as much as it's just a shift in society. Me and Toomey and all of us were talking about a while back about how, like, when September 11th hit, it was almost like America's mindset on everything, culture and music and everything really shifted. And I think that's part of it. Like I was talking earlier about like the hyper masculinity in metal. Fred and Limp Bizkit had that in droves, but for whatever reason, just it being a product of the times or whatever, just something that didn't age very well.
Yep.
There comes a certain point where you go from literally on a Thursday being the coolest thing in the entire world to on Friday everybody's like, oh, you're still doing that?
Right.
So I think they really didn't age as well as they could have. And I feel the same way too about bands like POD, although they continued further on after September 11th, which is we were talking about that too, how September 11th actually really escalated the growth of the Christian nu metal bands. That was whenever they all kind of came out of the woodwork, was after September 11th, because POD's Satellite came out on September 11th.
That's right.
And they were one of the biggest bands in the world at that time. And then, you had bands like Project 86 and, who we actually just talked to the singer of Project 86 a couple weeks ago. That was a lot of fun.
Are they doing some new stuff? He's
got a new record coming out. I've got it pre-ordered. I should be getting the vinyl, I guess, probably in a couple of months.
That's awesome. Yeah, they were on Atlantic with us. I think we did a 2-week tour with them, and yeah, great band. Whatever that record was that came out, was it
Drawing Black Lines? Or no, it was Truthless Heroes.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, we listened to that record a lot. I was just like, wow, this is really good. But yeah, that's cool to hear they're still doing stuff. I'll check that out.
Yeah, he was a really deep dude. Like, his lyrics were huge for me, growing up, even now. But yeah, no, I think like they came out, and then Blindside came out over from Sweden of all places. So Jeff,
yeah, Silence. I love that album.
Yeah, that's a great record too. You're right.
Yeah, it is. So it's just really weird that all those like spiritual, faith-based bands, kind of took over that scene for a while.
Yeah,
they filled the shoes, so to speak. Yeah, I hadn't either, and honestly, it wasn't until Toomey said it. He's like, no, well, September 11th had a very negative impact on record, because I think he was in Primer 55 at the time, and so he got to kind of experience all that stuff, firsthand, just like you did, between Taproot's second and third record. There was a huge dynamic shift in music that kind of had to be accounted for, especially when you've got guys in suits telling you got to make a hit.
Yeah, it was. I still, a lot of people wonder, did we not get the right push from the label? And, as I think back, I mean, there's hundreds of factors that go into whether people connect with a record or hear about a record. And, I think coming off of our singles, Poem and Mine, on the second record, and then, we spent so much time on the third record, and we decided to have Calling be the first single. That was definitely a departure for us. It started off kind of mellow, and it had kind of the hook, which I think people were either going to love or hate. And even the guy Jonah Matrenga from Far, who he actually co-wrote that chorus, he got the idea from Def Leppard Fooling. He straight up admitted it, and so who knows? I mean, I remember I played that song for a programming director for a station here in Flint, and I just remember sitting in the car and playing the song for him, and he just wasn't super excited like he was when I played Poem for him before it came out, and I was like, oh, that's not good.
Right. So, it's definitely not a good sign.
Well, yeah. I like Blue Sky Research, so we'll just...
Well, thanks, man. I do too. I think we really matured a lot in our songwriting, but maybe it just kind of took more of a... I mean, I think pop is too strong of a word, but I think it might have just taken a more melodic, mature turn, and people just didn't connect with it like they did. Because, we got plenty of support. We got all the big tours, and, so I don't...
Yeah, it was still business as usual as far as your tour schedule, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, we went out with Chevelle and 30 Seconds to Mars, and we went out with Deadsy and Dredge, and...
Oh, Deadsy.
You like Deadsy?
I do. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, Elijah Blue is a pretty cool dude. He was pretty quiet, but he was interesting.
He has a lot of deep thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I think he did an interview on Howard Stern when we were on that little run with him, and I just remember him saying that Howard was asking him about dating Heather Graham, and it was funny because she was living... There's this place used to be called the Oakwoods in Burbank, where a lot of artists stayed when they were making records. And I remember running into her a couple of times at the gym, and really attractive in person. But I remember Elijah Blue saying, he's like, well, yeah, let's just say that, because Howard says, oh, what happened with that? How come you're not with her? And he said, well, let's just say that Mensa isn't going to be calling to ask her to become a member anytime soon.
Oh, wow.
That was kind of funny.
Tell us how you really feel. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, right.
Yeah, she just some new pics came out of her, and she's 47 now, I think, and she still looks amazing, like absolutely amazing.
Attractive woman.
Yeah. So how about that Metallica?
Yeah. Anyway, let's go back to what we're really good at. A whole bunch of sweaty dudes. Yeah.
No, I could talk about voluptuous women all day long if that's what we want to go with.
No, we'll turn your mic off.
I knew we had you here for something.
We can't. Kids listen to this show. They don't. But
Whose kids?
right? Hopefully my kids. But when they're older and they'll be like, "Daddy, how come you?" What that's going to come down to later on, because now that it's on the internet, it's going to exist forever.
That's right.
No, my 13-year-old has checked it out a couple of times. So
my girls are going to be like, "Daddy, I remember one time you sent me to my room because I said damn, and you said the F word 732 times on." And then I have to be like, well, Daddy drinks a lot of beer whenever he drinks,
Daddy had a rough day.
Yeah, I don't know.
They're gonna make little memes and little loops
right.
of things that you said, and
No, that's what I have Joe for. He does that anyway.
Absolutely.
But yeah, no, it's interesting to me that what I liked, just to. I'm not trying to make the whole discussion about the book. Sorry, guys, but
no, it's perfectly fine.
I read it. I literally
It
read
sounds
it.
interesting.
I
What is it?
read what you sent me in one sitting, and I didn't intend on it. I was like, I'll read this for 15 minutes and I'll go to bed. And then it's like 2:00 in the morning, and I'm like, okay, it takes me a long time to read 93 pages apparently. But, yeah, but it was like the entire history of the band, and that I can't turn away from something like that.
No, it sounds like a good read.
Especially whenever it's a band that I know and I'm a fan of, so it's like really every detail becomes extremely interesting, and
well, thanks.
yeah, no, it was a good read. It was written well, because if it was written, if you had to have it sounds sincere. It doesn't sound like you had to have somebody ghostwrite it for you. It's not anything like that. So it was definitely a good read. But what I liked a lot too was talking a lot about how you talked about Taproot's early years.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like there's a lot. Like if you go on Wikipedia right now, everything starts with Gift.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, there were Taproot albums out before Gift.
Right.
And I actually was just listening to those. I don't have physical copies of them, unfortunately. But if you do, let me know. But
we planned on releasing we were going to call it B-Sides, B-E-S-I-D-E-S. We thought that was going to be a really clever way for a B-Sides.
That's funny.
Release. Yeah. So we went down the road and we kind of collected, I think, 100 songs, because for the second and third record, we had dozens of songs that we didn't do anything with. And so some, they were in various levels of completion, but we all had them on different computers and stuff. So me and my old bass player, Phil, got together with our computers and said, okay, what do we got? And we had like 100 songs, some of them with lyrics, some of them not, some of them just ideas, and some of them demos of stuff that made the records, a lot of stuff that didn't. And so we went down the road we decided we were going to make a thumb drive and, sell it for $30 or $40, because a lot of people were asking for it on our social media and stuff. So yeah, we went down that road, and I made the mistake of asking Atlantic permission or to say, what can we do with this and that kind of thing. And they didn't answer me right away. And then my email got shifted over to Rhino, which is kind of the company that makes the little compilations of the old stuff there, the 5 most popular songs or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they came back and they said, yeah, actually you can't do anything with this. And, we'd be happy to work with you. If you want us to manufacture something, we'll sell it to you. And I just got really ticked off and just thought, you know what? When we parted ways in 2006 or whatever, you guys haven't cared about anything we're doing for the last 11 years, so why do you care now? So after talking to a couple lawyers in the industry and some other artists, they basically said it's kind of like don't ask, don't tell. They said, hey, if you don't think you're going to sell more than 500 or 1,000 copies of this thing, which is probably about what we would sell, they said, you guys should just go ahead and do it. And if they tell you to cease and desist, you just don't make any more. And hopefully your fans have already gotten them by that time. And so I think we're still going to do something with that next year and just kind of not really worry about it. But we definitely had a lot of cool tunes that we wrote before Gift. And it was fun back then. It was just, hey, we'd come up with 5 new songs. We'd go to a little studio down the street and spend $350. And at that time, we were actually going to me and Phil both attended University of Michigan. So, and the other 2 guys were from Ann Arbor. That's how we all met. And we'd go to one of the University of Michigan computer labs before all the students would get there. We'd get there like 6 a.m, and we would sit there and burn copies of what we did in the studio, and then we would basically make our own CDs, and we were kind of promoting ourselves on some of those old message boards and on the Pimp Rock Palace back then, and we just saw these little pockets of fans developing because we'd sell them for $10 and people would send us cash or a check, and all of a sudden 4 weeks later we'd get 3 or 4 orders from Owensboro, Kentucky, and so it was fun. It was fun to see it kind of proliferate in that way, but it was just a fun time back then. You worked your butt off. You went and flyered for the shows, and you handed your stickers out at other people's shows, and we kind of touched on a lot of that stuff. But yeah, it was a fun time to do all that hustling kind of stuff back then.
Yeah, it's unique too because it's never going to happen again.
No, and bands don't hand out stickers. They don't hand out tapes at shows or flyers. Hey, check us out at this bar tonight.
I remember being aggressively asked to leave the mall one time.
That's awesome.
By security because I was handing out flyers to a show, and
Dan got desperate by mall cop.
Yeah, it was rough, but that was like at the very beginning. Because what was that, Joe? Like that must have been like 2005, 2006.
Yeah, something
like
that.
Yeah, and so it had started to change. At that point, and. But yeah, that just blew my mind whenever I read that like you guys got how many records you were able to sell just on your own, and in a lot of ways as a band was probably pulling in more money as an independent band than the major label,
Yeah, and even I think it took us 15 minutes to burn each CD, so we were making $4 an hour. So to think that we sold,
back in the day,
oh man,
I remember those days.
Yeah, that's right.
You actually said. You were thinking about calling it Besides. We loved album titles, and everybody around us, if they had a demo, it was just called their band's name. So everybody was like, oh, my demo's self-titled. So we actually called our first ever demo the self-titled demo. And we thought we were so fucking clever.
Name of it. Yeah. Right.
That's right.
That was new metal. That was super new metal. That was old.
That's awesome.
So what kind of band was it? What would you consider to be your influences?
For our band, well, we were in 2 bands.
Yeah, at that time, yeah.
And so the first one, the one he was talking about, definitely stuff like Taproot, Korn, Deftones,
and Metallica. James Hetfield.
Metallica a little bit, yeah. We actually have a riff on or a piece on one of the songs that's completely lifted out of Metallica's one. So thank God we never got popular, right? So like,
we were 17.
But then we were we started another band.
Forgive me, Lars.
We started another band in 2006 called End of Destiny.
Yeah, I don't know.
And we were actually a Christian hardcore band.
Right on.
And we I guess I don't know, we played like hardcore music, but it sounded a little bit more like I don't know, like an Under Oath, Hope's Fall kind of thing, where all I did was scream. I just abandoned trying to sing well at that point. I just let the other guys, if we needed to sing a chorus or something, they would just do it.
Dan growled a lot.
But yeah, I did a lot of the growling and high pitched screaming and all that stuff. But yeah,
so
no, that was
kind of like the intricate time changes. I'll try and bring it back to Metallica a little bit, but that's what. That was another thing that really attracted me to what they were doing in that record. And I've actually heard an interview with, I think maybe even Kirk, when they did the S&M record with the San Francisco
Symphony?
Symphony. And I remember when they were trying to orchestrate all that.
See what he did there?
Orchestrate with Symphony.
Orchestrated. Yeah, very nice.
They would, they just had so many weird time signature changes that it was really hard for the symphony to figure out even how to count it. And I think Metallica said, well, that's just kind of what we've always done. We don't know why we come up with it that way. And I went back and listened to Justice getting ready for this, and yeah, just even like the slowdown for Injustice for All, like the and then all of a sudden it just kind of ramps back up and it's full speed again. And I just think that, I still don't think that many bands were doing that even around that time. I think that might be kind of one of the Metallica signatures, that they just really had a lot of those cool little abrupt tempo changes and those weird little extra beats at the, even like the Master of Puppets thing. It's kind of like the dun, 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 dun. It's like, where does that come from? It doesn't really stick in with 4/4 time or anything. And
right.
So, so I think we always kind of tried to take a piece of that to make a song more interesting. Like the bridge of our song Poem, it's like dun 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 dun. We try to do like one of those little break things before you get back into the 4/4 time, and I've always thought that was really a fun thing to do, and I enjoy listening to music that does that.
So was it in Justice for All the drumming that got you started, or were you already drumming prior to that?
No, I decided that I wanted to play like Lars, and I think probably within 3 months, one of my good friends had his dad buy a drum set and a little crate amp and a bright fluorescent yellow guitar, and we just started trying to figure out how to play. But of course, we figured out pretty quick that we couldn't play Metallica yet, so then it was, I think where a lot of people start. I think the first song I ever played on drums was Smoke on the Water. And of course, he could play on guitar pretty easy too. And then, I was still listening to AC/DC and the Eagles, and of course, relatively simple drum beats. So I figured out, okay, I'll start with this because I taught myself everything. So I'll try to figure out how I can play along to Back in Black first, and then once I could do that, then I, just random stuff like, oh, now maybe I can play Kansas, and then all of a sudden, I think when Under the Bridge Red Hot Chili Peppers came out, the side snare thing that he does with the kick are kind of an offbeat thing. That's kind of a weird thing, and I realized like, oh, if I can play that, then that would open up some more things. And then like Smells Like Teen Spirit came out, and it's the cut time on the hi-hat with a lot going on with the kick, so it's like da 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 da. And I figured, oh, if I can play that, then I can add a little bit more to my repertoire. And then I discovered Primus, and then it was like,
I have a soft spot for Primus.
Yeah, I love. So Tim Alexander is in my top 3 favorite drummers, and a lot of people don't know who he is, but he was a big influence of mine. I love Primus, and I love how he approaches the drum kit. And so yeah, it was kind of like, Metallica definitely got me started. And once I kind of was exposed to a lot more music, I realized that, especially live, Lars is not the best drummer, but
right.
I still have a soft spot in my heart because, the stuff that he did on records is really good, even though I've now talked to engineers that have worked on some of those records, and they say, they would use thousands and thousands of pieces of tape spliced together to get a lot of those drum tracks from the studio. So
oh, that's rough.
We actually ran into
poor Lars.
Toby Wright at the 2017 Rock and Pod Expo.
Yeah,
I know he did some work. He worked on Injustice for All, and I got to talk to him about working with Tantric also. And the question I asked him was, how do you decide to keep a take when it's just that good? Because there was a couple tracks on the second Tantric record, After We Go, that were live. And then that's always the struggle when you're recording is, well, okay, what can I fix? And it's, well, sometimes you don't have to fix anything. And his answer that he gave me will stick with me forever. It was, if the band can't do any better, that's the best they can do. So go with it. And I then followed that up with, so what was Lars's best? And he said, you've heard the record.
From what I understand, though, he was a lot harder on you guys. It sounded like from the book that he really, really, really pushed. Because when you were telling me about how he was just so critical of everything, I was like, dude, I don't know how if I was the recording artist at the studio. Don't get me wrong, like big time guy, somebody you want to have on your team.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have stuck with it. I probably would have been that guy. I probably would have been like, you know what? I'm out.
You play the drums.
Yeah, you play here. Yeah.
You sing the song.
He was really digging in, and we came in, I think, with 20 songs, and we thought it was going to be a matter of, okay, we're going to pick the best 12 and record them, and that's it. And then I think what you're referring to is he got on a pad of paper, and all of a sudden he's writing song structures. And he basically at one point told me that or my manager told me that Toby had said he doesn't think that you should play on this record unless you kind of get a lot better. And in my mind, it just wasn't. I mean, my first reaction was I was pissed, and then my next reaction was I was feeling sorry for myself, and then I just kind of got super determined and just decided there's no way I'm not playing on my band's record. So I went and bought one of those drum kits that has the mesh heads so I could practice in my apartment after we were in the studio all day, and I would just take home tracks that we had messed around with in the studio and try to get really creative with stuff. And just I got a drum rudiment book, and yeah, I got a lot better and a lot more creative and came with more ideas, and it ended up working out. But yeah, you hear some of those stories about other people playing different instruments, and yeah, I think that probably happens on records a lot more than people even realize,
So what was your first kit and your first Metallica song that you could play all the way through?
Yeah, so
Nice.
I probably gravitated. So probably the first song I played all the way through was Eye of the Beholder on Justice, and I think that if there was to be a straightforward song on Justice, it probably would have been Eye of the Beholder. And if I remember right, I think I bought the little 45 record single for one, and then I think Eye of the Beholder
I was the other, yeah.
came out too, because I think, yeah, right?
Yep,
So
that's right.
and I'm trying to think of the B-side. I think one of them was The Prince, and one of them was, I can't remember the other B-side on the other one.
I don't have to look it up. I don't want to say like Blitzkrieg or something like that. Maybe something.
It was something from Garage Days, I remember.
Yeah. They had
Yeah, I
two
think you're right.
from there. We'll have to check on
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
Eye of the
But yeah,
Beholder.
so,
It was
Good.
the Small Hours.
yeah, what? That's right. It's the Prince and Small Hours. Now that you say that, sounds
yeah,
correct.
I think you're right. Yeah, that's awesome. Good call. But so yeah, Eye of the Beholder, you just got the kick drum, digga, 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 and that was easy to hit the kick and then kind of play that, on the floor tom. And so I think that's probably the first song that I learned all the way through. And then, of course, once one kind of became a single, I didn't grow up with MTV, so once I heard that the video was out, I heard there was this big controversy around it, I went and bought. They had the VHS tape that you could buy of the single, and so I bought that and I watched the crap out of it, and then I just loved that video. It was one of the first times that I actually got to see them all playing together. So, I never could proficiently play the double bass on that song, but I definitely tried, and I probably played it better than I've heard Lars play it sometimes. But
Did you ever get a chance to meet any of the guys or anything like that? Or
yeah, so not kind of once I became in the band, but when I was a senior in high school, which would have been '94, I went to a show. I think Suicidal Tendencies and
another good band.
Danzig were opening.
All I want is a Pepsi.
Yeah.
Just one Pepsi, come on.
They put me in an institution.
It's like literally one of my favorite songs
Yep.
ever.
Yeah, it's so good.
All right, so how do you feel
So,
about drum triggers? I'll stop. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we went to the show, and there was a guy that was kind of walking around where you go in this amphitheater where we knew that the backstage area was, and these two guys they're like, hey, backstage pass is $30, and my buddy and I were like, are you serious? And he says, yeah, we work for Ampeg, the amps, and we're like, okay, well, we'll give you the money if you can prove to us that they're real. So he's like, here, I'll walk back with you right now. We walked down this backstage area, and we saw Kirk walk by. We're just like, oh, no way. And actually met Mike Muir, and he was a total jerk, but he signed my shirt anyway. And I bought I think they had a white shirt at the time. So we met Mike Muir, and let's see. Yeah, I think we met Kirk right then. And then after the show, we waited for like a half an hour, went back down there, and then all the guys came out. And I remember Jason was wasted, but he was really cool, signed my stuff.
Eating a
I
sandwich.
met Lars.
That's right.
When I met Lars, he was sitting down, and he said it was the first time for some reason he only had the 2 rack toms on that tour instead of the 4 that he usually had.
Yeah.
And the most clever thing I could think of was, hey, what happened to your 2 other rack toms? And he was like, yeah, I lost them. I don't know what happened to them. And I was just like, oh yeah, me and Lars are joking around. This is so cool. And yeah, so he's my stuff. And then I remember very distinctly I met James, and he signed my shirt with this Sharpie. And then I was like, can I shake your hand? So he had to put his Sharpie in his left hand, and then he shook my hand. So I thought that was cool because he kind of had to go out of his way to shake my hand. But yeah, I got home. My dad had this thing with curfew or whatever. He always said, you don't have a curfew, but just know that I'm going to stay up until you get home, and I've got to work in the morning at 6 o'clock. So
yeah.
So I think we got home at like 1:30 in the morning, and he was there waiting, and he's like, where the hell you been? I've been worried. And I just started bawling, and I was like, Dad, I met Metallica. I met them all. And he was like, no way, that's awesome.
You are forgiven.
As opposed to unforgiven.
That's right.
See, I wish I had more stories and
I know.
like that. Because that's one of my biggest regrets as a music fan is I never really was that guy that hung out to meet the band, except for in a couple of really special circumstances, which is why I guess I started a podcast so I could just do this instead of, like
all the regrets of not beating people.
Yeah, that's it. All my regrets are fueling this podcast.
That's right.
Yeah, so
that's cool. We got to meet the guys.
that is really awesome.
Hey, Jason was wasted. Surprise.
Surprise, surprise.
I was surprised they all weren't.
So what year would that have been?
94, right?
94, yeah.
94, huh? Yeah.
Right around cutting stunts then.
Yeah.
I always have to say that really slowly.
Yeah, I know.
I don't want to mess it up.
You don't want to get beeped.
Right.
It was cool. I had already seen them. They were my first big show after the Black Album came out, and I'd only been listening to them for 3 years when the Black Album came out, but it was I still felt like, wow, this is kind of weird. Like I didn't love the Black Album, and Enter Sandman had already been played out on radio, and so even though I hadn't been a fan since 83 or whatever, I still felt like that was my band, and I could obviously tell that this was a departure for them, but I still liked the record. I still liked, I gravitated towards The Struggle Within and Of Wolf and Man, and there's still some great songs in that, and I probably have a better appreciation for that record now looking back than I did when it first came out, because Justice was my record, but yeah, I'd already seen them probably 13 times, and saw them, and I think I saw them with Guns N' Roses and Faith No More on the big stadium tour they did, and I saw them at the Palace of Auburn Hills where the Pistons play, and I saw them at this really small Saginaw Civic Center, and actually Alice in Chains was supposed to open the show, but something happened with them, so they came out on camera beforehand, and Lars said, yeah, we're supposed to take Alice in Chains out, but they couldn't make it, so we're just going to play for 3 hours, and everyone's like, yeah.
Sounds good to me. Yeah.
Like, Alice who?
Do it, yeah.
Now,
yeah, exactly.
So seeing them that many times, do you have a moment during any of the show where you're just in awe of of a song that they play or just something they did? Like for me, they had a show in St. Louis, and Kirk just out of nowhere just kind of goes into some melody, then to this thrashing solo, and then just more melody, and it's just one of those moments where I'm just caught in time, and nothing around me, I'm not paying attention to anything, I'm just mesmerized. Do you have a moment where you're like, man, this is just, I don't want this to end, I want this to go on and on and on and just not stop?
Yeah, I think for me, because I would say my favorite show was, they were in a small, I guess kind of like an ice arena. It was called the Saginaw Civic Center, and I'd kind of pushed my way up to the front, and I was standing right under Jason, and of course he had his kind of shaved head on the side, right, and then he had the really long hair, and when he was headbanging, his sweat was coming onto me, and I just thought that was amazing.
That's the metal baptism.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there you go. That's exactly right. And even so, I got at that show, he had thrown out one of his picks, and I dove on the floor and I got one of his bass picks, and then James had kind of come over to our side of the stage a couple times and threw out a couple of his little clear plastic solo cups, and I caught one of those. So I think within a week my dad had helped me build it, but I made this glass case.
Had a shrine.
So I had the pick and the cup in a glass case, and I think we went and got a little nameplate made for it, Metallica, James Hetfield cup, Jason Newsted pick, Saginaw Civic Center 1992. So,
awesome.
Nice.
I hope you still have it.
Yeah, I do.
Good,
I still do.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So funny story about The Struggle Within. In this room, The Struggle Within is the greatest riff ever. Tell me all about it, Dan.
It's
a really good riff.
Great story.
There's a big story, but it's a little embarrassing. So one day, me and Josh and Joe are jamming out in the garage, and we're trying to write new stuff because we're like, what?
Yep.
The keyword
17, 16, something like that.
Yeah.
Trying to write new song. Maybe we were younger than that. It might have been 15.
Yeah.
I can't remember now, but it's way back there. But Josh comes into the house and it's like, got his guitar in hand and he's like, guys, I got it. This riff came to me last night, and he starts playing it, and we're like, dude, this is like the best riff ever. Like, how did you come up with this? And we're listening to it, and then after a while, we were like, wait a minute, I know this riff.
I just looked up and said, dude, it's still
I don't think
within.
I don't think it's amazing because it's amazing. I think it's amazing because I've heard it before. Like, it resonates somewhere, and and then it's like we're playing Struggle Within, and at first Josh is like, no, it's not. It totally is. Sorry, guys.
I listened to that
It was like
album.
a legitimate, because that's one of the downfalls to being a musician is sometimes it's hard to differentiate between what was an idea in your head
And what's
and
just playing
something
somebody
that-
else's
yeah,
stuff.
Like it's just on a subliminal level. Like
I listened to that record so many times going to bed at night, and then when I would play in the morning, I would play at a different tempo, and it never clicked until I came in. I'm like, you guys are right. Never mind. I'm done for the day. I'm gonna go home. Sorry. I'm just gonna go home and bury my head now.
Yeah, I'm like standing there with a microphone trying to come up with lyrics to the Struggle With It.
Dad's like, we know what we got to hit here.
Guys, I think this is going to be huge. Yeah.
It's okay, Kirk.
So let me guess, is it the riff right after the bridge where it's like
Yep.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's an amazing riff. I mean,
Yeah, I think I was playing it just a tad slower, and it just sounded different and then he's like, "We'll speed that up a little bit," and then I'm like, "Son of a bitch! All right, I'm going home. Done.
we'll pick this up again tomorrow.
Yep, done."
Oh, man.
Yep.
What's your favorite song on Justice? Because I'm curious. I definitely have mine. What's yours?
One.
Blackened's mine. Well, Blackened.
It's blackened for you too, Dan. Admit it.
No, it isn't. It's Dire Z.
that's
Dire Z
mine.
for Dan. Yeah. Dan's has always been Dire Z.
I was raised in an extremely religious environment as a child. And
So you even identify with the lyrics? huh?
Yes.
that's my whole game, man. Whenever we
Right
talk
on.
about music, it's all about the lyrics for me. And
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, that song. I mean, I still get like goosebumps and stuff when I'm listening to it. I'm singing along to it, and that song to me is probably the most extreme metal that Metallica got.
Yep.
It's the most furious, it's the most angry, and it really set the stage for me as far as like, okay, well, I'm gonna make the jump to Slayer now. Like it was.
That was Dan's gateway.
It was. It really was, and that song blows me away, and I don't care what these
Me
guys
too.
say. That
That's
song
my
is,
favorite.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it's played so fast too.
Yeah.
For
I
a
don't
record.
I don't think they've ever played that live. I've seen them a lot of times. I don't think they've ever played that. Are you guys? Do you happen to be aware of them ever playing Dire Z?
It might be like part of a medley, but I don't think they've played.
I've never seen them play the full song.
No.
They only
no.
recently played "To Live Is to Die."
Yeah, that's something they do. Yeah, but they hadn't played that. I think the same for Frayed Ends too is another one. They just don't play much from that album, other than one. More so in the last 5 to 7 years.
Yep.
Maybe Blackened here or there, but yeah. And Justice for All, when they do play it, it's cut down 3 minutes.
Yeah. And I one thing that I always thought is kind of interesting about Dire Z is that I feel like, so in the verses, the drums are like, crazy thrash, and
Which
the guitars
apparently
are
were
going,
taped together.
So I feel like it's like Lars is working his butt off while the guitar's getting a break, and then when the guitar gets really riffy, that's when the drums kind of open up a little bit.
Yep.
I've always thought that was kind of cool.
What about you, Jeff?
What?
Your favorite song?
Favorite song? Come on.
Oh, on that is no question. It's Dire Z.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
Bandwagon Jumper.
No.
Frayed Ends is a good one too. That was a close second.
Yeah,
for me,
Frayed
too.
Ends is amazing, especially that intro.
It's a weird riff. It's a weird
song.
song. Everything. It's like on a musical level. It's just such weird composition.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just like a drunken, crazy riff, and I love it too because when, especially when you mentioned earlier with with the symphony stuff, like, if anybody's ever read the DVD and watches the documentary part of it, you know,
nobody's done that as much as you, Josh.
I know. Michael Kamen, the guy who orchestrated the whole thing, you know, was amazed with these, like, you guys wrote this in, like, you know, this time signature time, and James is like, I don't know what you're talking about. I just wrote the riff because it sounded cool. Like, he had no idea. He's like, I just wrote it because it sounded epic. And they're like, man, but you wrote it in this signature and this time. And he's like, all right, that's cool. I just wrote it because it sounded neat.
Yeah, I think at one point he's like, I don't know. Here's the way I came up with the timing.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, I'm going to switch riffs.
Yeah,
here.
Yeah, right. Right now,
like, it was not any.
Yeah, there was
an intentional thing.
Yeah, no epic writing. It's just like it just sounded cool. Yeah. Like, I love that fact that it's not technical at all. They just wrote it because it felt right.
So we can all agree that S&M is actually a good album, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that.
Because I'm not a hater. I love it.
There are a few songs that I might have left off and maybe added, but yeah, in a whole, I think they did a good job with it.
But aren't you glad none of them were Saint Anger?
Well, you know, yeah. Yeah. You know, some of those songs aren't bad when they play them live, like I said, but you have to play them live. You can't listen to the album, unfortunately. And
the snare ruined it all.
Yeah, I mean, it does. And I get the idea of trying to sound like a garage band, but like Dan and I have talked before, they did that before. That's called Kill 'Em All.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So it's, you know, it is what it is. They tried something.
The other thing I really learned a lot, well, a couple of things just drum-wise that I learned a lot from Justice was the beginning of Harvester of Sorrow, that doom, like he's got a triplet thing going on the drums. It's really cool, and I learned a lot. I kind of learned how to do that triplet kind of. It's actually kind of the same thing that is happening in the beginning of Hot for Teacher, or even the end of My Name is Mud, Primus, that that's the same thing drum-wise that's happening in Harvester of Sorrow, and I really latched onto that, and I learned, you know, kind of how to do that, and I still try to find places to add that in when I'm doing stuff, because I just think that's it sounds like there's a lot going on, but it's, once you figure out the pattern, it's kind of just easy and fun to do.
Sure.
And then the other thing was, you know, like the verse of And Justice for All, where it's like and he's still got the hi-hat going and he's got the toms going, and I just remember thinking, how the heck is he doing that? And then it wasn't until I saw him live that he's actually hitting the hi-hat with his right hand, but he's reaching underneath to hit the toms with his left hand, and I was like, wow, that's a whole another thing. And I didn't know how he was doing that for a long time until I finally saw a clip of them playing the song, you know. So he did a lot of really cool things just drum wise, and you know, that were really creative, that I think I probably, even just the whole, like, you know, accenting the snare with the cymbal, like he does that all the time, or he'll even like end a line with that, you know, and that's a really signature Lars thing to do, and I don't think a lot of other people do that, but I think I've definitely kind of picked up certain elements from what I learned from that record, you know?
Sure. And with the power of YouTube, you can learn anything you want from any of these bands.
Right. Yeah, now you can just pull it up and watch it.
Which is kind of cool, but yeah, I mean...
Like, Jarrod, did you know that Ringo actually plays the floor tom first in Come Together? YouTube taught me that recently.
I don't think I knew that. But I learned that John Bonham did his triplets by leading with his left hand, even though he was right-handed.
Which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to do. I've tried to do it, and it's tricky. Yeah, it's tricky.
So I only have one more question about Metallica, and I'm gonna. I think we're like, what are we at, Joe? Like 4 hours? No.
No, this isn't the.
It's Saturday morning
discussion.
Right. Yeah, it's already Saturday morning. Yeah, no, we haven't done that yet, thank God. But the last question I had is like, so what was your perspective, you know, on an album like Saint Anger coming out? When I think at that time, what was that, like 2003? So like you guys are either on tour or in the studio working your asses off trying to make the best record humanly possible, right?
And then that comes out.
And then that comes out, and you're like,
"What the hell?
Well, what the hell, guys?" You know, like what was your perspective on that, or was it even something that you were paying attention to?
No, I remember I went to the store and bought the record and listened to it, and you know, I guess it was kind of because we were on tour. I remember listening to it in the back lounge of a bus, and I just remember thinking that, I mean, I always try to give all bands that I love the benefit of the doubt and try to figure out what they're doing, because, you know, even a band like Deftones, I feel like it always, or even Foo Fighters, it always takes me a few listens to get used to what they're doing next. And, you know, Papa Roach, I think, does a good job of that too. They always, some of those bands that I like, always just take it a little bit further than where I thought they were going to go, and then it takes me a little bit longer to warm up to it. And, you know, usually ultimately I come to appreciate where they went with it. And so I was kind of thinking, okay, maybe that's where Metallica's going. And, you know, those first couple songs, Saint Anger, I liked what they were doing structure-wise and that they were trying something different. But you know, to be honest with you, I wasn't sure if, am I just, would this sound better if I was listening to it on a sound system that I was more familiar with, like, or listen to it in my car or whatever. So, you know, since you're on the road and you're just listening to stuff in different speaker systems and all that, I just really remember thinking, man, does that really sound like that?
And then you find out it does.
Yeah,
that's right. And it wasn't almost until probably I got home and I listened to it in my car and I was like, oh yeah, this is a really weird mix. But yeah, I guess I don't know if it really had too much of an influence on what we were trying to do, other than you know, just, I think at that time we were just in this mode where we were, you know, just kind of trying to write and try to figure out what we were going to do next. And, you know, I don't think we were consciously trying to write something that the label would like, but we were just kind of trying to write and flush a lot of stuff out. And then, you know, maybe once a week our A&R guy and our manager would come in and say, okay, what have you guys been working on? And then they would give their 2 cents on if they thought we made any progress or not. But so yeah, I mean, I've always appreciated that Metallica has always taken risks like that. And, you know, as opposed to, you know, like, I mean, I think AC/DC is always the classic example that people go to, like, oh, they've made the same record over and over. And yeah, some people like that, and that's cool. But
it works for them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it worked for them, you know. And I probably used to be a hater for that, but I don't really care anymore. And hey, you know what? They've got their fans, and people know what they're going to buy when they go to buy AC/DC records. So whatever, I don't care. But yeah, I can appreciate that Metallica has always, you know, just pushed the boundaries a little bit, and they don't, as big of a band as they are, they have never really, I think, well, I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think about Load and Reload? I mean, do you think that there was a real conscious effort to kind of write songs that were more in a pop radio friendly structure, or what do you think went on there?
Sure, I think so.
Yeah, I would definitely think so. I remember I was working at a comic book store at the time when that came out, and people are trying to tell me if that was Metallica, and I was like, no, it's not. And then I started listening. I'm like, no, that's James's voice. Oh my god. I had a hard time digesting what it was that they were doing. It was such a departure for me.
Yep.
And at the time, you know, I didn't necessarily think sellout initially. I was just like, I don't like personally where, you know, the direction they're going. And then the more I listened to it, and then they were plastered all over MTV, and then they're all over the radio stations. I'm like, oh, I felt like it was a money grab, is what it felt like to me.
Yeah.
They paid their, you know, and it's perfectly fine. Those dudes busted their ass. If they're in a position to do that, more power to them.
Yeah, I think I felt the same way. I mean, I ended up liking a lot of those songs. I liked Fuel, and I liked Ain't My Bitch, and I liked.
Finally, someone says they like that song. I don't get very many people who like that one, honestly, and it drives me nuts because it's one of my favorites from that album.
Yeah, or Wasting My Hate. I think that's a cool song. I think the whole concept of that lyric and that idea is really cool. But yeah, and then even like King Nothing kind of grew on me over time. But yeah, I don't know. I think they probably felt some kind of, whether it was conscious or not, some kind of a pressure to kind of fit in and be relevant, and they thought that was what they needed to do, I guess. But yeah, who knows? I mean, I like what they're doing now. I mean, I've spent a lot of time with the new record, but I think it's cool that they've kind of
gone full circle almost.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think it's cool.
Well, you can't play thrash metal in the mid-90s.
Sure.
Unless you're Slayer.
Yeah,
but,
Slayer's like the one band that can just do it for an eternity.
But I mean, even Megadeth did it. Everybody was changing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it makes sense in the general. It's easy for me in 2017 to sit there and justify it. I remember the way I felt about it when it came out was just that, like, I really liked Reload a lot more than I liked Load. Because Load had a country song on it.
Oh, yeah.
Which bugged me
horrible.
to
Yeah, that was horrible.
Yeah.
Can we just combine the two albums and just leave it at that?
Yeah, it was very upsetting to me to hearing that, because at that time I was still a very young metal fan. And so I wasn't willing to accept. It was one of those, like, if it was now, I'd get on Twitter and be all like, not my Metallica,
That's
hashtag,
right.
Or whatever, And
it could be worse. It could be an entire record of that, like it was with Risk.
Oh no, let's not go there.
They're referencing an episode we did on Megadeth where I went on like a 5-minute tirade about Risk and how much I hated it. But, no, I definitely think that those records, though, like, it's one of those things that, do they succeed as heavy metal records? No.
Right.
But they are decent pop hard rock records. And there's a lot of good ideas, and honestly, some of Kirk's best playing can be found on those. But it's not going to be your shred solo.
Nope.
It's not going to be a million miles an hour. It's not going to be double bass. It's not going to be anything that you're expecting as a thrash fan. But I think as a general music fan, which I feel like as we all get older, we kind of become.
Yeah, you're right.
It works so much better now that I'm older than it did at the time. At the time, I just wanted to hear fast and heavy and in your face, But now I actually listen to those records more, I think, than even some of the old thrash ones.
Well, let's be real here. I mean, I think they knew going into that writing session that they weren't going to top Black. I mean, that was the pinnacle of their career. I think coming out of that, and I think their mindset had to be, well, we're not gonna have Black 2 come out. We're not gonna top that album. So I think the idea was to change with the music, change with the times, and try and write something that was the direction the music industry was going, and just kind of leave that part of their career behind and maybe go a different direction. And I like the albums. I wasn't disappointed except for the country song that shall not be named. But I mean, I liked both albums. They were both good albums. I still listen to them, like when I want to hear some metal, bluesy kind of stuff. It's good stuff to listen to.
I've been listening to Load on the way home from work all week.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
Oh, yeah?
I've always liked those records.
I still like Until It Sleeps, even though it was not popular at the time. Fixer. I mean, they're all good songs on most of those albums.
The song "Bleeding Me" is actually one of the heaviest songs I've ever heard.
Yep, that's one of my favorites.
It's just not aggressive heavy. It's that like Sabbath type of
somber feeling.
Yeah. That's one of the songs I enjoy the most off of those records. That's off Load, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's a Load.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed that one, but.
Yeah, what about Unforgiven 2? That was not a good idea.
No. Yeah. Wasn't it as bad as the Unforgiven 3?
I was going to say, the Unforgiven 3, I mean, it's,
I'm cool with it.
It's better than 2. We'll say that.
That's kind of the problem with those two records is every third song may or may not actually be a country song.
Yeah.
Do songs need sequels? That's the biggest,
I half expected Unforgiven 4 on Hardwire, to be honest. So, I mean...
No, instead we got Spit Out the Bone, which is a really badass song.
Yeah. It's a good album. A very good album.
Yeah.
So I haven't spent a lot of time with Hardwired, and I need to spend more time with it. I mean, what do you think of it now that you've kind of spent some time with it? How does it fit
I think you just answered your own question. You need to spend more time with Hardwired to self-destruct.
Yeah, right on.
It's kind of a return to more of a faster paced, just kind of like metal ass kicking kind of sound as opposed to Load and Reload sound. Even Saint Anger, which is I guess a sound all of its own. I mean, even Death Magnetic. I mean, I think the sound, even their sound is different as opposed to Death Magnetic, where they just were. At least for a studio record, I think it sounds much better produced and much better songwriting. So
I think it's just more simple, straight ahead, in your face, kick ass.
Yeah, not trying to be too complicated.
Yeah, they're not being fancy. They're just like, all right, it's time to do some shit kicking.
Yep.
Just let's get done.
We're coming back.
Yeah, and that this is it harkens back to the Metallica that most of us, we love. They got to experiment and go and do a bunch of different stuff, and But it's nice that they actually. I almost think this album is more like a fan service album. This is like saying, hey, you
guys deserve this album.
You guys, just so you know, we still think about you guys, and we can still kick ass. And that's exactly what this album is to me.
Well, if you believe the story, this is what happens when Kirk loses all of his riff ideas, and it's up to James and Lars to save the day.
Yeah, but haven't they always saved the day, though?
Well, if you listen to what they say.
Well, and I mean, is it true? I think I get the impression, at least, or maybe I've heard it, that, I mean, do they let Robert in on a lot of the writing more than, I mean, I think they never let Jason in, right? But
Jason never, no. Except for Load and Reload. That was the only time that James kind of opened the door for Kirk and Jason to have ideas. And somewhat on St. Anger, as you've seen with the movie. But as far as I know from what they've said on this last album, Rob was in there, but a lot of that had to do with Kirk not having any of his ideas because he apparently lost them on his phone, and I don't know, and I guess he had the same thing kind of happen on Death Magnetic too, which is strange for 2 albums in a row.
So Lars is grabbing his phone out of his back pocket.
That's right, Lars
deleting all of his ideas.
Lars is throwing it out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, as far as I know, Robert was more in on the writing process musically on this last album, but maybe Kirk will come back the next time. I don't know, 3rd time's a charm.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'll just say this. As a music critic, it bothers me that Metallica is no longer innovative. They're no longer pushing forward, but it could be argued that they haven't been for a long time. But even Load and Reload kind of opened up the idea for directions that a heavy metal band could go in. So they were innovative in that sense.
That's a good point.
I just can't help but feel like with Magnetic and with Hardwired, that yes, we have a very familiar Metallica sound that we like. It's like a collage of everything we've gotten from Metallica up to this point. So as a music critic, I can't help but trash that a little bit. However, these guys are getting old, and as a Metallica fan, separate from my critical ear, I'm very, very happy to hear the Metallica that I'm familiar with again, but with different songs, so like it's so as a fan, absolutely, it's 100% buy it, love it. But as a music critic, I have to step in and say, well, is it really okay to rehash? But I do think that in the case of Metallica, the answer is kind of yes. Like eventually they have to, because you saw so much progression on Kill 'Em All, the progression from Kill 'Em All to Ride the Lightning was, Ride the Lightning was 150% the album that Kill 'Em All was. And then you had the same relationship with Puppets and Justice. And then I don't feel like they really stopped coming up with fresh ideas really until they got to Anger.
Yeah, probably. I mean, because Black Load, Reload were all different styles,
they were still
sounds.
Fresh, even though they were different.
That's a really good point.
And divisive, they were still very fresh. And unfortunately, these 2 new albums haven't been super fresh, but I think that's okay. It's kind of a shitty point to make, but it's
no, I like that. That's smart. So as a critic, you do tend to reward expansion of sound and going in a new direction. Is that right?
Yeah, because when I was younger, I was kind of more elitist, and so I don't like this band anymore because they don't do that thing that I like.
Right.
It's almost, and so I think as I've gotten older, and like that was part of the inspiration for us doing this podcast, was that I listened to a lot of reviewers and things that are very critical of the changes that bands make over time. But I've come to find that a lot of the time, at least for me, a lot of the times it's welcome changes. The new albums don't undo what the old albums did. It's not like by you listening to a new record, you're deleting the other one from your memory.
That's right.
And so it's and I think it's fun, and I think it's interesting to see where somebody ends up on their musical journey. I've listened to a lot of really, really heavy bands that end up sounding super mellow. And sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes that's a bad thing. But yeah, so I'm really like that change, that growth, that expansion, because it opens up. Because you may not know it as a fan, but somebody else might be listening to that and being like, "Oh man, I never thought about trying that." So maybe even if that change wasn't a good change for your band, somebody else might take that idea and grow on it and make it even better.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. We all as musicians maybe have some kind of a role in continuing the cycle of growth and of progressing music on and on, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. That's cool.
The circle of musical life.
Oh wow, I think my kids are getting a little.
Yeah, I think you're about to get mutinied. So we have taken a gracious hour and 53 minutes of your time, and for that,
this is fun.
For that, we thank you
very much. So
yeah,
very appreciated.
Really good conversation. This is why we do this. We love the face to face and. Just kind of getting into the nuts and bolts behind things, and we're not really professional interviewers or anything like that, so we just like to sit down and have a discussion like guys sitting in front of a fireplace just talking,
Yeah, the fireplace is my computer.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
I do need to throw this out. Jarrod has a book coming out. What I don't remember what the release date was on it, but his book is called True Rockstars, and I've read about, I guess, maybe maybe like 35% of the book, and I could tell you that there's definitely a lot of really cool Taproot info. If that's the only reason you're here, you still have all of that. But there's a lot of really cool concepts about success and happiness and stuff that are touched upon, and Jarrod's just got a lot of really good things to say about that from firsthand experience. This is not just somebody that is telling you something they're reading out of a textbook. This is like real life stuff, and I really enjoyed what I read so far, and I can't wait to finish it. But what was the release date on that?
Yeah, so I'm still doing in fact, I just went and picked the books up today, so I've totally done this self-published. I met with a couple publishing agents and publishers, and kind of because of some of the experience I had with the whole label thing and them dictating what I can and can't do with music that I recorded, I decided that I was going to do this completely myself, so I wrote it myself. I had the books printed in Ann Arbor, so I literally went and picked them. I picked up, I think, 36 boxes of 48 books each.
That's awesome.
So I put them in my van, so I got them out in the driveway. I haven't carried them in the house yet, but yeah, I plan to ship them, all the pre-orders that people have ordered, the week of November 13th. So I guess, and then on November 17th, I have a new band called Westfall, and we're also releasing our new EP. So we're going to kind of have a joint Westfall EP / True Rockstars book release that night. Awesome. So that's Friday, November 17th. And yeah, if you don't mind now, can I say the link?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Go right ahead.
Cool. Yeah. So I set up it's called Square Up Store. So the link where you can buy the book is squareup.com/store/True Rockstars. So you can also go to my Facebook. You can search True Rockstars, and there's a Shop Now button. Twitter is @True Rockstars. I think Instagram is @True_Rockstars. So yeah, I've written it over 4 years, and couldn't be more happy to see it in finished form, because I almost quit like 20 times because it's a really long process to write a book, but I'm glad I didn't stop because it feels pretty rewarding now.
One last thing, I know we keep on saying that, but we try to do this for every episode. We like to do like the band of the week, and it's not necessarily like the new thing, just whatever you've been listening to this week besides Metallica.
In fact, the most current thing I'm listening to is called, in fact, I haven't committed to memory yet. I think it's Nothing But Thieves. Are you guys familiar with them?
Mm-mm.
I am not.
No.
So I happened to see a Facebook ad. I'm just going to make sure that I've got the name right. And I thought, oh, that sounds really cool. And so I bought the record, and I really like it. It's kind of in the vein of, I will say it's kind of like Muse meets Royal Blood. So
okay,
sounds cool.
So yeah, let me just make sure I got it here. Yep, Nothing But Thieves. The album is Broken Machine, and the first song, called "I Was Just a Kid," is really cool.
Awesome,
cool.
Check that out.
Sounds great.
I need something for the drive home, so yeah.
There you go. Sounds good. I like it.
Josh, what about you?
I actually been listening to Power Man 5000 because they're actually getting ready to be in St. Louis at
son of a bitch.
At Pops. Pops or Pageant, I don't remember which it is, but yeah, they're going to replay a show.
Wow, I didn't even know they were still playing.
I didn't know either. I was listening to their first album, and I got a Facebook thing pop up since I follow different metal stuff, and they're like, yeah, they're got a new album coming out. And I was like, Oh, are you kidding me? Yep, I'm in.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, he's the better vocalist of the brothers, I'd have to say.
Yep, definitely.
It's not even close.
Yeah. I saw something too. I actually listened to watched their new video, and yeah, it's cool.
I'm excited. I hope there's new music coming out from them. I miss those guys.
All right, Dan, how about you?
Well, I've been listening to the newest. It's not new, but the newest Opeth album, Sorceress.
Okay.
And it came out a long time ago, but I just had so much other stuff to listen to. I'm like just getting around to it now, and I'm liking it. I'm liking it so far. It's very proggy, and it's a little up its own ass a little bit. But
I like that term, proggy.
But that's what I like. But that's what I like about music is I like. It's not necessarily a turn off if the music is pretentious, you know. Like as long as it's still brilliant, I'm on board. But
Lost Angel by Third Strike.
Did you listen to? Cool.
I love me some Third Strike.
Yeah, I'm going across the pond. Shouldn't be a shock. So I'm listening to Disharmonia, Mundi, and Mind Tracks. Hey, it's Bjorn Speed Strid from Soilwork. He does.
Hey, Josh, do you got some more of that chloroform, man? Later.
It's an Italian metal band. So go check them out with Speed from Soilwork doing the vocals.
Italian metal, interesting.
Oh boy,
what are they called? Disharmonia?
Yeah, Disharmonia Mundi.
Okay, I'm gonna jot this down. All right.
You've piqued his interest now too.
Yeah, if I ever start my own business, Jeff is going front line as salesman. He really sells it, man.
And the new Opeth and the new Power Man. All right.
Should be actually pretty good variety. So, and the last thing I tell everybody that we have on the show is that the door's always open. So if you ever get a hankering to talk about something and you enjoyed talking to us, hit us up.
Definitely will, man. This has been a lot of fun. Yeah, I'll definitely be back in touch. This is cool.
This has been episode 36 of Discography Discussion. Thank you for listening. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at discussmetal. Subscribe to our podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Google Play, iTunes, and Stitcher. Visit discussmetal.com for all things discography discussion, and please send questions and comments to danandjoeshow@gmail.com. If you are not a patron, you can become one at patreon.com/discussmetal. We have some sweet perks. True Rockstars can be found at squareup.com. Thank you, Jarrod Montague, for hanging out with us. It was a blast, and we will see you in the future.
Right now.
All right, so I got to edit this, right?
Yes.
Hey, Josh, can I borrow that for a second?
Oh, you can borrow it, buddy.
Oh, thanks.
Dude, did he just chloroform himself?
Shh, go to sleep. Go to sleep. He gets off. He's like, man, that was really weird.
All right, well, everybody's chloroformed. So, Josh, you want to get some beers or?
Yeah, I've got some in my trunk, Dan. Come out to the car.
All right, I'm going to do it, even though I probably shouldn't do it.
It'll be okay. I've got candy.
Okay, it is Halloween, so that checks out. So
it's cool.
All right,
here, come with me over here, just out this door around the alley.
All right. Well, hopefully you guys will hear from me next week. If you don't, let me know.
Hey, you. Do you like the Tales from the Crypt series? Do you like spooky things in general? Then check out the Good Evening Kitties podcast. That's Good Evening Kitties podcast. GOODEVENING KIDDIES podcast. Each week, I'll review a new episode from the TV series The Tales from the Crypt. Find me on Podbay, Podbean, or iTunes. That's the Good Evening Kitties podcast. Check it out today.